Well, hello there, and welcome to another edition of the Flavors of Northwest Arkansas podcast. I'm John Engelman. Thank you so much for being here. Today, we are up in Bentonville at the River Grille talking to Brenda Swango. But before we get to that, good news. A big congrats today to Julie Sill and her team as they've officially opened the Feral Pig in Fayetteville. Julie is the former owner-operator of Common Grounds and Hog House Brewery, both on Dixon Street in Fayetteville. And if you've been missing some of the items that were at Common Grounds, you might actually see them at the Feral Pig.
I'm putting stuff on the menu that's kind of backed by request or popular demand. So that's kind of...
So the birdseed salad, the shrimp and grits, the Bloody Mary, anything else from popular demand?
We've got the Rosananda wrap, which sounds kind of crazy, but yeah, that was vegetarian before vegetarian was cool. And even vegan before, people would take the cheese out and it was a vegan dish back in the 90s.
We interviewed Julie when they were just building out the space, and you can hear that podcast by scrolling back to November the 27th. Fresh off of being named a James Beard Award semifinalist again, Chef Rafael Rios announced the grand opening date of his newest establishment, Casa Magnolia in downtown Springdale. It's happening February 18th, and they'll be open from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Casa Magnolia, of course, is next door to where Chef Rios is also a part owner, and that's the Bauhaus Beer Garden on Holcomb Street. Now, some not-so-great news. The Blackberry Brasserie in Rogers has officially closed its doors. It was really sad to see this. We'd interviewed owner Hunter Thomason and Chef Bernie Martinez in only our second podcast ever last February. We'll keep an eye out as to what will be moving in next. Also sad about the Bentonville Provisions closing in a few weeks. They're having a sale with all items being 20 to 50% off. I caught up with owner-operator Chef Carrie Burris, who told me that there is a possibility that it could be a very similar retail store under new ownership. We had Chef Burris on our August 14th podcast, and man, what a background she's had. Give her a listen. Brenda Swango practically ran a cafe at a gas station at 14 years old. She worked in restaurants through college, which included pounding ice at 6 in the morning. She'll tell you that story. After college, she worked in retail and travel, but the pull of the restaurant world never left her, and she wanted back in. She worked for a restaurant group in Oklahoma and wanted a project where she would be a partner, and it finally came. It came as a steakhouse in Bentonville in the year 2000. What was she thinking? She'll tell you. Brenda also tells us about their event called Dining in the Dark. What is it? How do folks participate? And what does it have to do with Chelsea Handler? We talked to the River Grille's Brenda Swango, and that's next, right here on the Flavors of Northwest Arkansas.
Teachers are dynamic leaders, shaping a new generation, innovating to prepare students for our fast-changing world. They're skilled experts, discovering a universe of solutions, telling stories, inspiring, mentoring, connecting cultures, leading by example. Teaching is a journey that shapes lives. Are you ready to begin? Explore teaching at teach.org.
And welcome back. We're at the River Grille with Brenda Swango. Brenda, thank you for your time.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, so I'm hoping you guys have rebounded well from the weather.
We have rebounded. Ready for it to get warmer, though.
Oh, gosh, aren't we all? I think we're getting more a couple, 2-3 weeks down the line, and I'm certainly not looking forward to that. So I wanted to kick it off with you and find out your restaurant past. What got you started in restaurants?
Well, I got started very young when I was in high school, just working at like a little gas station. And
Nice.
It was like we ran the buses through and filled the buses up. And then they had like a little cafe, where we did burgers and stuff like that for the kids to come over before the football games and stuff like that. So I worked there and had a little ice cream, place where you could do ice creams and stuff like that. So I started there in high school, and I ran it all.
Yeah.
I cooked and I did the books and
Wow.
and
In high school?
In high school, yeah.
Oh, gosh.
So and I was only like 14. So
you're looking for you nowadays, is what you're telling me here.
Yeah, exactly.
To a degree.
Nice. Yes. But yeah, I just grew up, doing that through high school and stuff like that, and then went to college and said, hey, like I'll just stay in the restaurant business, and it was an easy job to get. Works with your college schedule, and started working for this place called K-Bob's, which back then, so we're looking at the late 80s.
Okay.
They used to have these salad bar stations, and you would pound ice, and you'd build the ice around all the bowls, and you put your salads in, and their salad buffets were huge. So K-Bob's had that, and I worked there on the weekends, and I would go in at 6 a.m. in the morning and pound ice for
Would you really?
4 hours.
Now, where
with
was
pedals.
this?
I was in Salina, Kansas.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but pounded
ice.
for 4 hours, make the salads, fill them up, and be done by noon,
Oh my gosh. So anyone that complains to you nowadays, just be glad you're not pounding ice for a living.
Ice, yeah. So.
Oh my gosh. So when did you know that this was going to be your path going forward? The restaurant business, that is.
I think I started in retail. So I was in fashion merchandising.
Okay.
And did that through college, and, and enjoyed restaurants and stuff like that.
Sure.
And then got into the travel business. And that's where I think, we did a lot of like cruise shows and stuff like that. And I had worked in the restaurants and met my partners actually and worked for them for 5 years in Oklahoma, but then got out of it, got in the travel business, was in Kansas City. And even then when we do big cruise shows and stuff like that, they were always like, Brenda, can you like get that set up? Can you get the food arranged? Can you do all this stuff? And it was something I just really loved, and I missed, not doing that and entertaining and arranging all the foods and making sure everything was perfect. So when my partners, and when I left them, I always wanted to get back in the business, but I wanted to be a partner. And I think that was the big thing at that time. They didn't have a place for me to partnership with them, and they were looking for a restaurant. So
Gotcha.
We kept in touch while I was in Kansas City, and then they called me and said, hey, like, I've got something for you.
Nice. So we're in Oklahoma.
They're in Bartlesville, Oklahoma.
Okay, yeah.
So they have, I guess, 3 restaurants between.
They're feeding the 66ers up there, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome. So tell me about coming here and thinking about this concept here.
Yeah. So
in the year 2000.
Yeah.
Or I guess 99 maybe at that point.
We started talking about it in 99, early spring, and my partners, came to Kansas City and said, hey, and we met at a Ruth's Chris in Kansas City, beautiful old building.
Sure.
And that's what they were saying, this is what we're looking for. We're looking to do something like this, a nice fine dining steakhouse. There's nothing like that in Northwest Arkansas. We've got this guy, and that was Colin Washburn. And he owns the office park. He's got partners in this hotel, and he's got this land, and he's making us a great deal if we will come in and open up a restaurant there.
Were you even familiar with Bentonville, Arkansas at that point?
I was, but not, we came here from Kansas City, came down here to go floating, to,
Oh, of course.
hiking and stuff like that. So it was like, a getaway for us on the weekends. And it, it still was, it was 4 hours. Back then we didn't have this great highway and diversion, so it was still a long drive, but we loved the camping and the hiking and the floating. So I was familiar with it. And even when I lived in Oklahoma, we would come over here.
Oh, wow.
But, and so I was somewhat familiar with Northwest Arkansas.
Okay, so
and
you're
Walmart,
Yeah, so you're kind of amenable to doing it.
Yeah. But when they told me the concept and bringing, a fine dining steakhouse here, I was like, are you out of your mind? That's never going to work.
Yeah.
So, but
they convinced you and they got you on board.
Yeah.
What was it that did that?
I was just, I wanted back in the business.
Okay.
I missed it, and it was a great opportunity. I felt like, travel was probably, at that point, everybody could get online and book travel and stuff like that. And so I was like, I don't know that there's a great future for me there, and missed the restaurant business, and it was exciting, like to come to a new area and have that opportunity. So
got to get that restaurant adrenaline, right?
And Colin kept saying, this place is going to explode. Northwest Arkansas is going to explode. He was really, the vision of what he thought was going to happen here. And he had retired from Sam's Club.
Okay.
So kind of knew what was happening by 2005. So
did you roll your eyes back then?
I did.
Bentonville's going to explode. Northwest, right.
Yeah, they were like, this is going to be the next little Dallas, And so it was like, all this is going to happen. And, you just, when you, I don't know if you were here back in 2000.
No.
Yeah.
No.
There wasn't anything. I mean, there was, hardly anything here. And believe it or not, this was the spot to be at that time, because it had the premier office park. It had the hotel that all the business travelers were coming to. And Colin knew everybody. And so it was like, it was just, and we were close to the home office, or what we considered close to the home office.
Sure,
at the time.
of course.
But, and Colin had it all figured out, because like he had a van that he'd go to the airport, he'd pick up all the vendors, he'd bring them to this area. They'd stay at the hotel.
That's great.
Go across the street and work and come here and eat 3 or 4 nights a week. Put them back in the van, take them back.
Cha-ching, baby. Heck yeah, that's awesome.
It was perfect. You know?
That's a brilliant play. I love that. Yeah. So getting this place set up at the start, for a place like this, you've got to get chefs and you've got to get some people that can really, kind of make it like a Ruth's Chris. Mm-hmm. How do you find that here?
That was difficult.
Back in 2000 it was.
Yeah, it was. Because, again, there weren't a whole lot of restaurants. And, James at the Mill was the premier restaurant at the time. And we had Blackboards and Basil's, and they were owned by the same people, Fred's Hickory, and we still had Tell of the Trout back then. So those were your 5 major restaurants. And we, coming from a restaurant, we didn't have, the chefs to bring over and to do that. So we knew we'd try to find them locally. And I can remember we ran our first ad, and it was
there was no Brightwater either.
Yeah, no, and nobody came in. Nobody came in. Nobody answered the ad, and so we started visiting the different restaurants and stuff like that, and kind of seeing what was out there. And ran the ad again, and we finally started getting people to come in, and we did find people from other restaurants that were excited. They started hearing that this new restaurant was coming in, and there really hadn't been any new restaurants. And especially like standalones. So even like Blackboards and Basil's, they were in like shopping centers. So so there wasn't really any new restaurants that were coming in that were going to be standalones and trying to do what we were going to do. And, we were putting that out there, kind of our concept and what we wanted to do for Northwest Arkansas. So we did. We got some great chefs that came in. We were completely understaffed when we opened this place. Of course,
yeah.
I remember.
Well, you probably didn't know it was coming. Or you have your grand opening, and we'll talk about that in a second, but you have your grand opening, you're like, please, people, be there.
Show up.
Yeah.
Well, I was like, even with my servers, it was like it's hard when you're a server and you're in a restaurant that's doing really well and you're making your money to make a change, But I had like 3 servers. You have to be 21 to work here.
Okay.
It was a dry county at the time, and we do a lot of table service. Like we pour your wine by the glass is at the table. Your beer is at the table. Everything's at the table.
Yeah.
So we were like, you need to be 21 to be able to do that because we're understaffed, and I don't have someone that can just go around and pour. But I had like 3 servers that we were just like, okay, they're turning 21. Like, you're just waiting for, okay, they're ready to go. Like, and one just turned 21.
Happy birthday, suit up.
Yeah, exactly. 2 days later, I'm like, get your uniform on. You're on the floor. So
that's awesome. What a great story. Well, the grand opening, I ask everybody this. 24 hours before the doors fly open, are you pulling your hair out? What's going on? I've interviewed people that are like, yeah, the AC went out. Yeah, it was in the middle of the summer. I mean, it was just things like that. Did you guys have any of those?
What's crazy is like it all went very smooth. The biggest problem we had was these floors. So the floors that we have in this restaurant were supposed to be old floors from old bridges because we wanted it to look like distressed wood and all that stuff. It all fell through, about 4 weeks before we weren't getting the floors. So we had to change plans, and they came in and laid these wood floors, but they didn't look like we wanted them to. So they came in and they were hand scraping. Everything, hand scrape, buff, and we're all, so we as owners and employees were with little chisels, hand scraping, trying to get these floors ready to make them look like this. And then they buffed them. And the crazy thing is and they're gorgeous, but everybody loved them. And so the people that we hired to do them, everybody kept saying, who did your floors? Who did your floors? They got so much business.
Did they really?
That they finally said, you have to quit sending people. He goes, we're charging, 3 times what we charged you, but you have to stop sending people because we're not doing these floors anymore. It's too much work.
We can do the floors for you in 3 years. That's right. It might take 3 years.
And now they, they make floors like this, prefabricated.
Yeah.
But these were actually hand just etched out. And
gosh.
We were all just trying to, get it done and get them in here so they could stain and get the doors open.
So the doors open. Yeah. Everything goes according to Hoyle, day one?
We did a soft opening, of course. We did a couple of openings, where we invited, people in the community.
Dignitaries.
Right.
Yeah.
So a lot of people from the office park because that was going to be a big part of our business.
Excellent.
We did that, and then we did, just our River Grille family, so they could taste everything. But then we didn't really advertise that we opened. So we actually started on the 18th of March, but we didn't advertise our grand opening until the 28th. So we had 10 days to just kind of work it out. And
Absolutely.
We just basically opened the doors, and we had the hotel next door. So we let them know that we were open. And so, we had potential of, 30 to 60 to, 80 people coming over from the hotel.
Oh my gosh.
So we just said, we'll see what happens. And I think that was the smartest thing we did, because you didn't have those mishaps,
Yeah.
You got to
It's always
do it
good to have a
slowly.
soft week.
Right.
Yeah.
And we did. So then after that, the word got out that we were open, and people were like, what? They opened? They were supposed to announce.
And then you got hammered.
Then it started coming. So that's when the fun began.
Yeah, fun. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. So, and tell me a little bit about reinvention, because, in a place like this, you don't want to reinvent much, if anything.
Right. And I think, we went through 9/11, of course, and I think that's when reinvention popped into our minds, because we were an expensive place to come and dine, and we weren't getting the business travel, and that's what we relied on. I mean, that's why we were here to give those people that were coming from all over a taste of home.
Sure.
Finding. And when we built it, we wanted it to be an old-looking steakhouse that you could find in Chicago and New York and places like that. So I think that was when we said, are we going to be able to make it? And we did kind of look at the menu and how we could, pull things together at a better price so we could get the locals to come in and support us during that time.
Yeah.
But, I think because it's Walmart land, we only had a short stint that we had to worry about that. And we decided, even then when we were talking about it, it's like, we can't change who we are.
Yeah.
At this point, we've got a few years in it, and we have to continue. We have to keep going and know that we're going to make it through it. And we did. Like I said, I always say we lived in a bubble,
Yeah.
Couldn't be touched.
Yeah.
Until COVID.
Yeah.
But
Well,
you couldn't be touched.
talk about that in a second.
Yeah. Walmart was here. And Tyson,
it was the perfect
JB
timing.
Hunt,
Yeah.
And if you're going to do business, you have to show up. So,
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
it worked out. And I think, the next time we considered about moving was, just as everything grew south of us and nothing was happening here.
Yeah.
And this was before Crystal Bridges, or before we knew about that. So we were looking at 2007, 2008, and we had the whole thing going down at Pinnacle, and we're like going, and this was before Ruth's Chris came in, and we're like going, do we need to move? Do we need to move to that area?
Yeah.
But again, now you've got 7-8 years here, and people are finding you and they know about you. And I think the best thing is staying where we were. We're like this little hidden secret. We're not in all that congestion and where everything is, happening, and we're kind of tucked away to ourselves, and it's kind of like a secret little spot. People talk about, well, if you don't know about River Grille, like they're right there, And
Absolutely.
So it's been a great location, and I'm glad we didn't try to reinvent ourselves or do something different.
Okay. Well, listen, you brought it up, so I got to bring it up. COVID, the C word.
Yeah.
How did you guys survive?
Well, it's like,
I'm sorry. Am I hitting some scar tissue here? I'm so sorry.
Well, it's so funny because you sit there and keep thinking, like, this will all blow over. This will all blow over, Yeah. And, we knew a couple days before that it wasn't going to blow over and they were going to shut us down. And we didn't have much time to really think about it. And, they keep saying, like, think outside the box. Can you be a grocery store, try to sell your product? Can you sell your wine? Can you do this? And you just like... But everything you wanted to do, you wanted to keep people safe and keep your employees safe. And I said,
Absolutely.
So we did. We really did have to think, and we had to think quickly because, in the restaurant business, you don't have a whole lot of time to just waste money.
Right.
And my big thing was, I wanted to take care of my people, and I knew I'd have to lay them off. And, and I wanted to put a lot of money towards, making sure they were okay as we went through this process. But I held on to my management staff, and we just took our menu and we did it for like meals for 2, meals for 3 or 4 and 6, and lumped it together and tried to make the to-go work.
Okay.
But putting a steak in
so
to-go,
hard. Yeah.
And I think we did it really, really well, but it wasn't going to make it for us.
Right.
And I was doing everything I can to not shut the doors. So I decided I had contacts in every subdivision, like Talamore, Shadow Valley. I live in Liberty Bell, Hearthstone.
Yeah.
Right over here at Woods Creek. We did deliveries for Woods Creek within 5 miles. And then I basically called those people and said, can you get us on your Facebook page? We're going to do, specials every day, and we're going to deliver to your neighborhoods.
So great.
So if you'll put it out there, give us 24 hours, have them call in, they'll call in their orders. We'll get everything ready to go, and we'll deliver. Because, typically you couldn't deliver that far out, and they'd have to come here. And, that's what saved us. I mean,
That's
every
great.
night we would get an extra 10, 15, 20 orders that we would deliver.
Gosh. All the difference.
It does. I mean, you just had to keep that cash flow going in.
Yeah.
So, but it made the difference. And of course, the community was just fantastic, and our surrounding neighbors. in Woods Creek and down in that area, they kept us going and they supported us local businesses.
And I've heard that about places all around Northwest Arkansas during that time.
It was crazy.
Everyone that went through that, they did something similar, not necessarily that great, but as far as like pickup and things like that,
Right.
like we wouldn't have made it.
Yeah, you had to. You had to like start thinking how can I get my food out there?
Yeah.
And still not ruin your reputation
Yeah.
for being good.
Yeah.
But like I said, in our business, prior to COVID, it was 70% the business traveler coming in here on an expense account, 30% local. So that all changed with COVID, because now they're not traveling. And I think, because we had so much support from the locals, our businesses continue to grow because now they're seeing us, they're seeing us more often than, once a month or something like that, coming into the bar, grabbing a burger or whatever it might be, doing that. But our business definitely has changed. And, and a lot of those people maybe didn't even come visit us prior to that, but now they visit us and we become their place, their little local place. So.
And this, people at home, they just get so tired of eating the same thing and not being able to go out like they could. So they were looking at every pickup option or delivery option they could find.
Yeah.
And you were probably found by folks, I would think probably new to the area. Everyone that was old to the area knew who you guys were. But I would just think that was maybe that kind of played into a little bit of a bright bounce back, if that makes sense.
Yep, it really did. So,
speaking of which, did you guys have to, when you reopened from COVID, did you have to pull tables out and do the whole social distancing thing?
We did. So we actually did. We used the back area of the restaurant, and that's where we stored the extra tables.
Okay.
And we did. We only had 2 tables in the center of this, and we took our piano, moved it to the center, so we could get an extra table in that corner.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And, as you know, a table's money, so it's like I'd rather move the piano where nobody can be, and put a table there.
Smart move.
And I had lost my executive chef, and so it was like I needed to find a new chef, and I was talking to every vendor that came in. I'm like, there's got to be someone that's been furloughed, a chef that's looking for a position, and that's how I found Chef Ordway, and who's with Crystal Bridges right now. And I kept saying, how do I get a hold of him? Does anyone know how to get a hold of him? And nobody knew. And like one day, just like 2 days later, he walks through the door going, "Hey, I hear you're looking for me."
That's great.
Yeah. So he's like, one of my goals is to get a fine dining restaurant through COVID. He said, that's my goal. And, he loves doing special events, and that's what he does with Crystal Bridges and stuff like that. And he was a big part of how I got through that next phase, because, we could do the special events. It just had to be social distancing, and we needed to give people a reason to come out and do something different. So we were doing wine dinners. We were in a lot of the local breweries, and I had a wine distributor that would come in and do it. And we were doing a lot of things just via Zoom with winemakers and stuff like that. But he did an event every other week. We had an event here.
That's awesome.
So, So we were constantly out there advertising about these events and getting people to come in. And like you said, people wanted a reason to come out.
Yeah.
And something different.
Oh, my gosh. Well, the second we could, we were out.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't even in question.
Yeah.
Like getting the heck out of the house. So you survived that, and now we look at it, and it's 25 years in March. Silver anniversary. Are you going to get some silver?
Lots of it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I know we talked beforehand, but what do you do for a 25th,
I don't know. We're still trying to decide what we want to do. It is special. 25 years is a long time. And
for
we were talking,
anything.
That there's not many restaurants that last that long. So you do. When we want to do something, we haven't quite decided what to do. I was telling you earlier, we had plans for 20 years, and that kind of came through because of COVID. But I think we'd like to do something to celebrate the 25 years for sure.
Awesome. You ready to talk food?
Let's talk food.
Let's talk food. We got that in the Mike England Home Pro Tip of the Week, and that's next right here on the Flavors of Northwest Arkansas.
Connect with us at Flavors of Northwest Arkansas on Facebook and Instagram, or by email at flavorsofnwa@gmail.com.
Okay, it is time for the Mike England Home Pro Tip of the Week, and for that, we go to Brenda. Brenda, what do you got for us?
Well, I'm not a chef, but I do cook at home a lot, and one of my things is I work the grill. You would think my husband would do that, but I'm better at cooking the steaks.
Nice.
And so, my big thing is number one, you got to get, when you're cooking at home, you got to turn it up high, get it as hot as you can, so you can get a nice sear on that. So I always close that lid, and I get it up to about 500 before I'll sear my steaks and get them going.
Nice.
But one of the favorite things I like is, it's always, nobody wants to clean that grill.
Nope.
And you get some seasoning on that. But if you'll take a raw onion and rub it across the grills, it'll do a nice, just the enzymes on that will clean that
So
grill.
like cut it in half.
Yes, cut it in half. Rub it across there as a cleaner. And then, you'll have to eventually do a tougher clean on it. But
Sure.
it definitely works and keeps your grill nice and seasoned and gives it a nice, and gets some of those
Really?
edges off. Yeah. It's a
Excellent.
great, easy way to do a little cleaning without putting chemicals on it.
All right.
Yeah.
And my wife is all for ruining onions. She's not an onion person, so something to look into. We'll be right
It
back.
gives it some flavor.
Oh, yeah. We'll be right back to talk food.
Your story doesn't have to end. As an organ donor, the good in you can live on. In fact, you can save up to 8 lives through organ donation. Sign up to give the gift of life after you're gone. You'll be happy you did. Just maybe, someone else will too. Sign up online today as an organ, eye, and tissue donor at organdonor.gov. It saves lives.
So here's some stats for you. And we'll start with great news. Great news, over 48,000 transplants were performed in 2024. That's the most ever. Here's some not so great news. There are over 104,000 people on the National Transplant waiting list. That's also the most ever. And the number grew by almost 2,000 last year. Know that 17 people die each day waiting for an organ transplant. Please get signed up. So that when your untimely demise happens, you're saving other lives. Go to organdonor.gov. You can also do it on the health app on your iPhone. Health app on your iPhone. I'll get it right. And you can also, your local DMV or Department of Finance, you can do it there the old school way like I did years ago. Thank you so much. And welcome back. We are talking food with Brenda here at the River Grille. Let's go ahead and kick off with dining at dark. Please tell me about that. It seemed so, I had to look up and see what it was, and I thought, oh, wow.
So we started this 15 years ago, believe it or not. So, and I think we were already doing farm to table and stuff like that. Back then, my chef was Rob Nelson with Tuscan Trotter.
Sure.
So, and, he's a great chef, and we were doing farm to tables, and those were fun events. We were doing the wine events, but I was like, I need something new. I need something that'll get some younger generation people in here.
Smart.
Spark some excitement. And I happen to like Chelsea Handler.
Yeah,
And
the comedian.
Yes, watch her late nights. And she wrote this book called Where's My Vodka, I think. So
I haven't read it, but
okay,
it sounds like her.
So I was reading that book, and one of the chapters, or one of the things, she was talking about this dining in the dark in New York it was a restaurant called Opaque.
Okay.
And her whole experience there was just hilarious. I mean, I was rolling, and I was like going, like, I've got to do something like this. So I started researching like where that came from, like, how did they start Opaque? And so it actually started overseas in Europe.
Okay.
But it was some monks that were, trying to help the blind and give them work and jobs. And so they opened up a restaurant.
Interesting.
And they did. The blind people started, and that's how they made money. And that's how it all got started.
Interesting.
But then they started restaurants over here.
Ooh, what a great idea.
Yeah. So I said, well, let's just do a pop-up night and see how it goes. And so I researched it all, and like in Opaque, they had like infrared glasses and stuff. And so I went out and I bought some.
Did you
like,
really?
Yeah. I was like, let's see how this works. Like, how does it work? But if you don't use them every day, your depth perception is off. And so as we were, trying it just for the first time, we were running into tables we couldn't see. We were trying to set things down. So I was like, okay, that's not going to work. Those aren't going to work.
I can
We're
only
gonna have
imagine.
to, this is a one-night thing, so we'll take the lights down. And so we thought, well, but we couldn't get it dark enough. So I was like, okay, it's blindfolds.
There you go.
They're going to wear blindfolds. So we decided that we'll just take the lights down as far as we can. The customers will wear blindfolds, and we'll still give them the same experience. And the whole idea behind it is that your senses are awakened. When you have sight, you see a pizza, and you don't really eat it and savor it because you already kind of know what that's going to taste like, or what you think it's going to taste like.
Yeah.
If you don't know what you're eating, and you have to use your sense of smell and touch, and and taste, it's a completely different experience.
Yeah.
You know, so it's supposed to awaken those senses. And then we usually we do, you know, some sort of entertainment, and a lot of times I'll have like someone playing a guitar and they're walking around, so it's very heightened senses, and it's fun, and it's the loudest this restaurant will ever be.
Okay.
Because if you don't have your sight and you don't see someone responding to you, you tend to want to talk louder.
Because what I was going to say was, you know, I would think, now if it were me, I'm so paying attention to other senses, I'm not really talking because I'm focusing on smell, and I'm focusing on, you know, it's like
Yeah.
whenever we're driving around and trying to find somewhere, we turn down the radio
Yeah.
because we're looking for something with our
Right,
eyes,
right.
right?
But as you're doing that, you want to talk about it. You're like, oh, I smell this. I smell what
of
texture.
course.
That texture.
I
What are you
get it.
getting? What are you getting?
I see.
So everybody's
Okay, that makes
talking,
sense,
and then
yeah.
You add some wine to the scenario because we do.
Why didn't you say that at the start? I get it now, right?
Yeah. So we do a wine pairing along with
Okay.
it if you want to do the wine pairing.
Yeah.
And so it just, I mean, people are having so much fun and trying to figure it out, see if they've got it right. And conversation happens a little more wine, and it does. It gets pretty loud, and you know, it's the loudest it'll ever be. It's,
Oh my
'cause, you know,
gosh.
and we sell the restaurant out now. So like we started it, and we would just sell out the smaller private room for 32.
Okay.
And then we got to where we could do 50. And so we'd sell this room out and
Mm-hmm.
then still try to do regular business. And then once I got to 80 people, I was like, okay, we're gonna book out the whole restaurant. We'll just keep the bar. But now we'll sell about 80 or about 100 seats for this, and we'll sell it
The whole
out.
place?
Yep. The bar always makes me a little nervous because they're high top tables. But
Yeah.
usually when we tell people they're going to be in there, you know, they're aware of it. And I'm always like, don't move from your chair
gosh.
until we get to you. Because even using the restroom or anything they do, they stay blindfolded. So we train them in. They hold on, and when we enter into the dining room, they're blindfolded from the start when they walk in.
If it's your first time in here and you don't know the bathroom, good luck.
Yeah. Well, once they get to the bathroom, we let them take the
Okay.
blindfolds
Okay.
off.
Good.
But to the bathroom, they keep it on. And
Okay.
then they knock on the door, and we take them back.
Gosh.
But
I'm
yeah.
assuming a lot of spills, maybe.
I tell these people when they come in, you really don't have that because, again, when you can't see, you're just that much more cautious usually
Okay.
as long as you don't have too much wine.
Okay.
But we always tell them,
Oh, yeah.
and we give them little tips like, keep your hands flat on the table and you'll slide.
Oh, okay.
And everything's where it's
Yeah.
supposed to be. And typically, you're picking and using, and you don't really even think about it, but like, even when you're dying, I mean, if you pick up a fork, you know where your mouth is. So
Sure.
you'll do it. And everything that we prepare for you, we try to do it in like so it's easy to pick up if you had to pick it up with your hands,
Yeah.
or if we do a meat, we'll slice it
Yeah.
so that it's easier for you, so you don't have
Okay.
to use a knife and fork unless you want to make smaller bites. And a lot of people will use their knives and try to cut and stuff like that. And we use like a clock system. So like
Okay.
if you still have like a lot of food left in a certain area, we'll say, if you're still hungry, you still have protein at 4:00, or with this dish, you want to use
Nice.
a fork. But like I said, we work really hard to make sure whatever the dish is that we're doing for you, that it is easy for you to pick up with your hands if you need.
So the server's got to put it in front of you, like in an order.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So
the chicken breast is at 6 or whatever,
right.
steak at
and,
6.
And we
yeah.
don't tell you. We don't tell you. Yeah, we don't tell you what you eat. You have no idea what you're getting.
Oh, well, that's the blindfold, of course. Yeah.
Until the end of the evening, and then we disclose the whole menu to you. So it's fun, and then everybody's excited to see if they got anything right.
Sure.
And a lot of times they do, and it's. I found like after we started doing this, like the third, fourth year, we started getting so many chefs coming through that.
Oh,
would
no
do it.
kidding.
Yeah. And it was
Really?
fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because they were like, I want to go do it. I want to see if I can really detect,
Wow.
what's in there. So it's kind of like a, blind tasting with wine. Sommeliers. It's like
Sure.
It's, you always look forward to seeing if you can figure it out.
Well, it's funny you mentioned sommeliers because you guys have an extensive wine list here. And, we've got odd wine laws in Arkansas and always seem to have. I don't even know what it is now and how it is to navigate around that, or even if you can navigate around that. I don't even know what I'm saying. But my point is it's really hard to have a good quality wine selection, and you guys have that. Talk to me about getting to that point and being able to get things through here or here
Right.
at all.
Well, of course, when we opened in 2000, it was a dry county.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So it was crazy then to try to get a wine list like we have today. We had to buy all of our liquor through liquor stores, and they had to be Class C licensed. So
Gotcha.
and we weren't really considered a restaurant at that point because we bought from a liquor store. And so, like, I tell this story about cake bread. I could sell a case of cake bread a week because, it was like one of those cult wines that
Sure.
the vendors knew and they all wanted the cake bread, but they wouldn't sell it to me. And so their rule with cake bread is that 75% of the wine has to be sold to restaurants before they give it to the public. So, but for me to buy their wine, I'd have to buy it from a liquor store, but they wouldn't sell to the liquor store because they have to sell they want to sell so much to the restaurants. So I would, I'd call the winery. I'm like, but I'm a restaurant. I'd send them my menus. I'd be like, I need your wine. I need your wine.
Yeah.
Like, can you just send it to this liquor store? Because that's how I have to buy it.
Yeah.
No, they wouldn't do it. So I was like bootlegging, going across. I was like, I need to have
That's
that
what
wine.
we were tiptoeing around. Yeah.
So I'd go across the line, head up to Missouri,
Yeah.
get my case of cake bread, and so I could sell it here at the restaurant.
That's so great.
But, things have changed since then.
Sure.
So it's a whole nother story. And once we became wet, it did become a lot easier. Because, I literally would call the wineries
Yeah.
the wines that I wanted.
Okay.
Because the thing was I just needed them to ship it to the liquor store. The liquor store, would bring in, if it come to the state, if they could get it from a distributor or whatever, they'd bring it in for me. But I would have to call them and say, hey, I really want your wine on my list. Can you contact so-and-so at this liquor store so they can order it for me? You just had to jump through hoops.
Gosh, what a convoluted way.
Yeah. But then once it went wet, then, all the distributors were here. It
Okay.
was exhausting.
Oh.
Like, they were coming in just every day trying to,
Trying to sell you.
They could sell to you now.
Yeah.
They could actually come into the restaurant and sell you, and they wanted you to taste their wine, taste this, taste that. And I was
Yeah.
just like, I can't do this. I
Became
can't
a-
taste anymore.
Yeah. Just
But-
call me
yeah,
next time.
yeah.
I'm happy to. Yeah. Became a catch-22
Yeah,
a little bit there.
But we still work really hard, and there are several distributors now, and there's a lot of smaller ones. And so for the wine, you really, if you want the kind of list that we have, you really have to work with all of these distributors to get what we have on
Sure,
our list. So a lot
sure.
of restaurants, because you got buying power if you just stick with one distributor, if you just stick with and buy from them.
Yeah.
But you just can't get the extensive list like what we have if you don't. So we work with them all. I have 5 different vendors that I work for the wine list, and these smaller ones are great because like if there is something you want, they can go out to California or go wherever. I've got one Vino, and he's from France, and he's over there, and he's working, and he's bringing in all these different wines, and he gets them here for us, which is great. You might only get that for one time,
Sure.
and then you have to change it up. But we don't mind doing that either, because our whole idea is we want you to experience new things. And
He brings you the Chateau de Sol.
yeah. He's fabulous. And
Yeah,
like I said, and
he's
a lot of
great.
times he'll bring the winemakers with him, and they'll talk through the wines and stuff. And it's really hard to get French wines, and so it's it's great to have that connection. And like I said, these smaller distributors will actually, if you tell them you want something, they'll actually go out and see if they can't get them to distribute it
That's
to
great.
Arkansas. And again, Arkansas is growing so much now. It's different, I would say in the last 6 years, a lot of these wineries do want to be here. They realize the buying
You bet.
power here, so
Absolutely.
they're definitely coming in and wanting to have their wines on our list. So
And they'll come do dinners.
yep,
They
certainly.
absolutely will.
Yeah,
That's great.
for sure.
Well, let's get into the food side of things. I want to start with the appetizers. I'd love to find out more about the bacon wrapped sweet peppers. They look amazing. Are they the most popular, or maybe not?
Well, they are very popular.
Yeah.
Our shrimp and crab dip is probably the most popular, and that's
I was
been
thinking
an
it was one of the
item,
two, yeah.
That's been on our list from day one. And
Okay.
we've always had that, and that's a recipe, as chefs come in, they always, want to change things up. They want to do something different, and, I think it can make this better. That's one thing we
Slap
never,
the hand.
we don't touch. There are certain things, I'm like, those are off limits. You
Yeah.
can't touch them, and they will stay on the menu, and that's
Yeah.
one of them. But I love the fact that you asked about the peppers, because that's mine.
Oh, okay. All right.
And like I said, I'm not a chef, but we used to do back when, and I think they're still doing it up in Fayetteville, the wine event. What's the big wine?
Oh,
charity?
the Walton Arts one?
One, yes.
Oh.
Art of Wine.
yes, Art of Wine.
Art of Wine. So when we were open when that first started, and I helped build that program. But we would go
nice.
up there, and you had to do like little bite-sized appetizers, easy for people to pick. And so I was always trying to come up with something. Every year you try to come up with something different that was really great.
Yeah.
And at this point, Carl had his Table Mesa open. And
Okay.
and I think he still has.
Yeah.
The dates. They're called cheap dates. They're called cheap
Okay.
dates on his menu.
Okay. Yeah.
And people would come in and they're like, "When do you have any of those cheap dates?" And I'm like, no, that's Carl's. That's Carl's thing.
Yeah.
So I was like, how can I do something, that's just as good or if not better than these cheap dates that everybody's talking about? So it's just basically a stuffed date that's wrapped in pepper.
Yeah.
Or in bacon.
Bacon, yeah.
So I decided, well, I needed a bigger vessel. So I use sweet peppers, and we take the cream cheese, the almonds, the sausage, and the dates, everything that makes that great, and we stuff the peppers with that, wrap them in bacon. And
That's
so
great.
my first time I made them, I was like, I'm going to do this for the Walton Art Center and see how it goes. And so we made them, and people absolutely loved them.
Yeah.
Went on and on about it. Got to put them on the menu, so they've been on the menu ever since.
Listen, most people would have a ghost pepper as long as it was wrapped in bacon. You know what I mean? Bacon is awesome. And listen, I like a good blistered sweet pepper, something like that.
Yep.
So good. So good. Let's jump into the seafood. I love a good seafood pasta, even if it is 2,000 calories. I'm not saying yours is, but the ones I get usually are creamy and so good. Oh, it's scampi. That's right. That's true.
It's gonna be, but I agree. The creamy ones are people really love
it.
them.
But this time of the year, and you guys do have a market fresh catch.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys usually have this time of year on as your fresh catch?
Well, we kind of run a little bit of different things as we go. So
Sure.
Halibut's on our menu right now, and we bring that in. But we've been working with sea bass a lot. We're going to be doing that for Valentine's Day.
Nice.
That's popular. It's very expensive right now. So we kind of use that for just special occasion.
Sure.
Because when people are out celebrating, so Valentine's Day is a great day for that, or
Yeah.
like we did that for New Year's Eve.
Mm-hmm.
But what's really working for us right now is the mahi. We've been doing some walleye. I know that doesn't sound like a fresh catch, but we do get that from Lake Superior, and people absolutely love it.
Yeah.
So we've been doing that a lot.
Walleye, so good.
Yeah, so a lot of grouper, that kind of
Okay,
stuff.
yeah.
Some different type of sea basses we've been bringing in.
Good.
Just some different.
Yum.
But we have it. Our fish off. It comes in from Kansas City. I know we were talking earlier about the earlier days when you'd have to bring fresh fish in and how difficult that was, but it was actually, I think, easier for us back then, because
Really?
we actually worked the different seafood purveyors along the coast, so we had connections with them.
Oh, good.
And
Okay.
so I would work both, north and south, wherever I wanted to get fish, we'd call and find out what they were bringing in on the boats, which was lovely. I'd be like, okay, what's coming in fresh? What do you have? And they're bringing it in. And we didn't have to buy a lot. So we could buy 3 pounds of this or that, and they would ship it to us. And they'd ship it right here to Northwest Arkansas. You could go pick it up, and you're, as fresh as you could get it.
Yeah.
But everything started changing. You had to buy more. You had to pay for the containers. It got to be where we couldn't afford to do it.
Oh.
So it was like, what are we going to do? And I think, that's when Fortune Fish is a company that we use out of Kansas City.
Yeah.
And I think they saw that Northwest Arkansas needed that need.
Is that the place there that has tanks? Do they have tanks for fish, or that I'm thinking of, or maybe I'm thinking that's for, I don't know, maybe lobsters up there or something like that?
I'm not really sure. I've not been to their facility. I know that they shop, all around and bring stuff in, and I know they supply a lot for Northwest Arkansas.
Gotcha.
Because, Kansas City is an international airport, so they're bringing that fish in, and then they have delivery, and they're doing it every day, which is, nice to bring it to this area for the needs. So they do a
Smart on
great
them.
job. Yeah, they do a great job for us. And, they guarantee it, I think, within 48 hours. So it's great.
It's a nice little guarantee.
Yeah, and we've been really happy with what they provide.
That's
so
great.
Everything we get is fresh that comes in. So
That's great.
yeah.
Let's talk about the big daddies, the steaks.
Okay.
Hand cut, dry aged, the whole bit. Tell me about them.
Well, so we just recently, I'd say in the last 3 years, turned our whole meat program over to some local farmers out of Missouri.
Oh, nice.
So we didn't used to do that, and it took me a long time to make that decision because we were aging in-house. We were, we worked with our purveyors, of course, and we aged everything in-house. We wanted at least 35 days on all of our steaks.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Before we even cut. And so it was a process because you got to have storage for that. And we got to be where we couldn't do that anymore. And our food purveyor kept, we were buying our ribeyes and our strips from these local farmers up in Missouri. It's Herzog. And we were very pleased with it, but I didn't want to give them my tenderloins because I do so much. That's the number one selling is your tenderloin steak.
Okay.
So we go through so many, so I wasn't prepared to do that, but we did that 3 years ago, and now they are Like I said, they're just local farmers up there, raising their cows. They do everything in-house. We've been to their facilities. We see how they do things, and they do a fabulous job. But now they're, finishing out the cows the way we want them done. They're, hanging the way we want, and they're aging for us in their facilities. And then they ship us at the 35 days and make, so everything is aged there.
Perfect.
For us
So you get it here, and in-house you cut them, and away you go.
Yeah, we still try to store for about 7 to 14 days.
Oh, okay.
Here.
Yeah.
And then, because again, you never really know how much business you're,
Sure.
sometimes. And so, we want to make sure that we still have, a good supply here so that we can cut if we need to, but we know that it already has the age on it that we're looking for.
Now something I've never had. Bison. It scares me a little bit. I'm sorry. I'm just not familiar with it, but what's the flavor? What is that like?
Well, I always say it kind of reminds me like of a dry aged beef.
Oh, okay.
So bison's very, very lean. So you really don't want to ever cook that. I always say no more than medium rare.
Okay.
But we'll cook it however you want.
Sure.
Chef says medium is all he wants to do, but medium rare because it is very lean and it's very healthy for you.
Okay.
But it does have a little bit of that more richer meat taste to it.
Okay.
I always say, dry aging, you're aging it in its blood, so you get that more flavory type of richer meat taste, and that's kind of how it is. So it has that kind of aged beef taste to it, but people love it. I sell a ton of it. And
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we get all of our bison out of North Dakota, so there's a ranch up there that we work with.
There you go.
Yeah.
Wow. The home where the buffalo roam,
Yeah,
basically. Would love to talk desserts because, as I told you when we were sitting down, looking through the dessert part of the menu, you look and you say, ooh, I'm going to get that. Then you look at the next item and you're thinking, ooh, I'm going to get that. Then the next item, ooh, I'm going to get that. And then you got to start all over again, basically. What is the hot? My wife is a huge creme brulee fan.
Yeah.
And so whenever that's offered somewhere, that's what we usually get. I like a good cheesecake, I know it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
We're kidding. But what's the hot dessert?
Well, I'm like you. When I go into a restaurant, the first thing I do is like, can I see your dessert menu?
Yeah.
Because I want to pick my dessert and make sure I have room for that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're very fortunate to have a great pastry chef here that does all of our desserts are done in house. So he makes a great creme brulee, but what he does best is probably our cheesecakes. We make that on our list. It's seasonal because he doesn't want to make the same cheesecake day to day. He
Makes sense.
He loves making cheesecakes and every flavor you can come up with. And I know I tested him the other day. I was like, because he's always saying, what do you want for the flavor this week? What do you want? And I was like, I want, we haven't had carrot cake. Carrot cake's not on our menu. Like, make me a carrot cake cheesecake, and he's like, I've never done that before. So
Challenge accepted.
Fabulous. Absolutely. People loved it. We put it on our New Year's Eve menu and sold out of it. That was the first thing to go. So he does. But the cheesecakes are always fabulous.
Yeah.
But I want to tell you about a dessert that, because when we first opened, we didn't make our desserts.
Okay.
We used a company called Sweet Treats.
Okay.
Didn't have a pastry chef back then. And, you couldn't hardly find, like we were talking, it was hard to find chefs in general to get the place open. So
Absolutely.
We wanted consistency. So we had them brought in and
Smart
used
move.
this company, and it was about as good as it could get. But when I decided, hired a pastry chef and started I want to make my desserts because everything else was made in house. I was like, I want our desserts made in house. So there was this one dessert. It's called the mousse cake, which is a white and dark chocolate layered mousse cake with an Oreo cookie crust.
Ooh.
And we did, and I had a couple of customers, but I had one particular that was a very good customer, and she's like, you know what? I have to have that every time I come in. She says, I will just keep it in the freezer. I'll let you know when I'm coming, pull a piece out for me and have it ready for me when I come to dine because I have to have that cake. And so I did it for like 3 or 4 months. I just kept that frozen cake,
Yeah.
in there for her if somebody else had to have it. And I was just like, I finally told my pastry chef, I was like, it's a mousse cake. Like, surely we can make this mousse cake. I mean, like, it's a mousse cake.
It can't be the hardest thing ever, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so he's like, challenge accepted. I'm on it. And so he would make it. It as easy as you think it's going to be. Mousse is a little, and you have to layer it.
Okay.
So, we did have to do some different things to make it work so that it was strong enough because the white mousse part of it's going to be softer than the dark mousse.
Yeah.
All this stuff. But he attempted it, and I would take a piece of our cake and then I'd take thaw out her frozen cake, and they didn't live very far from here. I'd put A, B, go to their house, drop it at the front door and say,
stop.
Yeah, no, I'm not kidding. I would say, which one's better?
Oh.
And she'd say, I know, try it again. So I was like, okay. So the next week we do it again, take it to her house. After the fourth trip to her house, she said, you got it.
Wow.
And so that's always been on my menu ever since. And that's what we call our signature dessert is
Interesting.
our layered chocolate.
That's a great story.
White chocolate mousse cake.
That's a fun story.
Yep, it is fun.
So where can folks find you? Online and in person?
Online, we're at rivergrillesteakhouse.com. And then, of course, in person, our address is 1003 McLean Road. We're just right off the bypass at exit 88. A if you're heading north, exit 88, just normal if you're heading south.
There you go. And social media?
We're on Instagram. We have our Facebook page. I'm trying to think. I think it's just River Grille Steakhouse on both of those.
Okay.
Bentonville, I think, on Instagram. So.
Grill with an E.
Yes, Grill with an E.
Okay. Thank you so much for this.
All right,
It's a great interview.
Thank you.
You can thank you. Flavors of Northwest Arkansas. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And please, please, please remember to tip your servers. Have a great week. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.